Welcome to Sabres Scoop, presented by the Hockey Writers, a once-a-week show covering all things Buffalo Sabres and NHL hockey. We thank you for joining us today, and to make sure you don't miss any future episodes, be sure to subscribe to and like the show on YouTube, follow and share us on Facebook, and catch all the great hockey content on thehockeywriters.com. And on our Twitter feed, you can find us at Sabres Scoop THW and everything else at the Hockey Writer. And also make sure that you head over to morningskate.io to sign up for our daily Morning Skate newsletter. It's a great one. Believe me, you're not going to regret this. So don't miss out on all the latest and weirdest hockey news every single day. Jordan, we have a couple of gentlemen to introduce tonight. Could you please take it away?
Yes, we do, Brandon. Our guests today are Peter Baracchini, who covers the Toronto Maple Leafs for the Hockey Writers, and Blain Potvin, who covers the Montreal Canadiens. We've assembled another panel today to cover more Stanley Cup playoff action, since there isn't exactly that much Sabres news to cover, except for this huge piece of news because the Sabres finally won something. For the first time since 2018, the Buffalo Sabres have won the 2021 NHL Draft Lottery, which took place yesterday. And wow, this is awesome. Obviously, I remember drafting Rasmus Dahlin back in 2018. General Manager Kevin Adams saying it's a great moment for our franchise. It's obviously been a tough year for a lot of different reasons. We're very excited and proud to have the selection. It's a step in the right direction. Huge news coming from this draft lottery as well. The Seattle Kraken winning the second overall pick and will have players available for them in their first ever NHL draft. And the Ducks, Devils, Blue Jackets round out the top five. I'm just curious, what were your guys' initial reactions to the draft lottery? Let's start with you, Peter.
I was just hoping the New York Rangers didn't somehow creep up and win it again like they did last year. That was just really crazy. But I mean, the Buffalo Sabres had the best odds going in, given the season that they had. It was really, really difficult and rough. I mean, both Andrew and I have talked about it countless times on our podcast, Six and the Six, and it's unfortunate because the fan base deserves so much more. And then on top of that, you have Taylor Hall not performing as well as he should, Jack Eichel having a subpar season, then he goes out with an injury, and it's just issue on top of issue on top of issue, including their COVID breakout. So it's nice to see that, there's some positives right now. Granted that there's no solid number one pick. It's still something to be, happy about, considering that they are going to get a good prospect with that first overall pick.
Yeah, totally. And any last thoughts on that, Blain?
I mean, with Owen Power and Matthew Beniers being right there, it's going to be a tough choice. Do you go with Power because you've already got Dahlin, who's a top pairing left-handed D, and Power could become that? Or do you go with Bernier so you can replace Eichel when you trade him? It's a tough call.
Yeah, you're assuming Eichel's going to be traded, so that's a dangerous game to play, but we can go down that road a little bit. I guess my final thoughts on that would be, I would think that I would look into trading the pick if they're going to hang on to Eichel and Reinhart. If they're not going to hang on to both of those players, I think you need to keep the pick. And I think you need to go with a forward. I think, even if Owen Power is there, which, I mean, obviously he will be at number one, but I think you need to go with a forward for that. And it's got to be the one that you think is best in the draft. And hopefully with the Sabres, meager scouting department, they can figure that out. So the next question, and I'll jump to Jordan for this question here. Who do we think the Sabres should draft? It looks to be a race between Owen Power and Matt Beniers, the 6'6" defenseman and a potential first line center, especially if you don't hang on to Eichel or Reinhart. So there's a lot of, things that people question with Powers, especially his hockey IQ. But in watching film, I've seen a lot of Sabres writers be very high on this guy. So, there's some people who say you should or shouldn't go first. There's others people who have jumped up to first overall who weren't even in the top five by a lot of rankings. So Jordan, let's just hear it. Who do you think the Sabres should draft?
Well, there's a lot of factors here, Brandon. Beniers actually did get injured today at the World Championship, so that could be a factor depending how severe this injury is. Owen Power did really step up. He had a slow start to the World Championships, but he ended up taking over on that first power play unit for Team Canada. Made a lot of great feeds. Was able to get pucks through the shooting lane. Looked very dominant in that tournament towards the end there. And I'm curious, obviously the Michigan program is just pumping out all of these guys. There's even even a guy like Simone Edvinsson could make the way for a potential case to be the first overall pick. Not necessarily that I would agree with that, but with this draft, because of all the factors that went into this COVID-riddled season, who knows at this point? I'm going to take the bet that Matt Beniers probably should be the first overall pick. I know there's a huge line between people that hate Owen Power, or not necessarily hate him, but don't really trust his game, and people that really love him. I'm somewhere in the middle, I would say. I'm more of a Matt Beniers guy myself, though.
All right, Blaine, if you were Kevin Adams, general manager of the Buffalo Sabres, thank God you're not. That's a very hard job right now. But if you were, who would you take at first overall in this draft?
Yeah, I'm in the military, so I feel safer being shot at in my job than Kevin Adams is going to be in his. That poor guy's going to be dodging lots of bullets here for the next couple of years. But if I were in the position, I agree with Jordan. I would lean towards picking Berniers. He's going to become, in my opinion, a first line player. And with the defense that you've already have on hand, best to go with him, really. And you're starting over again with this, with a kind of a retooling the rebuild. I don't know. You're jamming up 3 or 4 different ideas together at once. That's kind of the problem with Kevin Adams having to face. He's cleaning up the mess of the last 2 guys who were there. So yeah, I would go out of my way, pick that forward, and just start trading for more futures. The next year is probably going to be a write-off anyway, so why not?
Yeah, for sure. Great answer there. Peter, same question as we wrap up here before we're moving on to the next topic. If you are Kevin Adams, who are you taking first overall in this draft?
I really don't know. That's just me being perfectly honest. I mean, to Jordan's point, yeah, everyone is a little bit not on the Owen Power, hype train, given the fact that, he is not necessarily a kind of defensive that you would take at number 1, but you look at Aaron Ekblad and, the kind of impact that he's had as a two-way kind of player with the Florida Panthers. Do you try to go for that, even though Rasmus Dahlin is already on the left-hand side? Do you draft another left-hand defenseman where you can have both Power and Dahlin as your 1-2 in your top 4 on the left-hand side? So there's that to consider. If you do move on from Eichel, you have the potential of drafting the smarts of a two-way center in Beniers. And again, just like Power and his impact at the Worlds, Beniers had, a really strong showing as well, despite the fact that he's injured right now. The fact that he has the potential to be, and as Matt Zadar mentioned in his draft profile, the potential to possibly follow in the career trajectory of that of Jonathan Toews. Solid two-way centerman, first-line minutes, may not put up the points as maybe you would see like, Austin Matthews with his shots, McDavid, McKinnon, but he could be a really steady 60-point guy. And for some teams, it worked for the Chicago Blackhawks. So I think right now, given the fact that they have Dahlin at the left-hand D side, I think you try and go for more forward depth because they're actually lacking in both departments. But if you want a solid two-way center, I think Beniers is your guy. But if Power is what they want, then so be it.
Yeah, and moving on with that, Jack Eichel. His initial rehab timetable ended on May 30th, and Elliot Friedman actually suggested last Saturday on Headlines that the team and the player were going to have a meeting this week to discuss his future. This meeting has likely already taken place, and it awaits to be seen what the future for Eichel is in Buffalo and how they will handle his herniated disc. And I'm sure everybody here saw the chaos that ensued after the Leafs Habs series. Of course, you guys did. And the anger that's being directed towards Mitch Marner. This was a fun little trade suggestion that's been being thrown around. Is a potential trade of Marner plus, perhaps, for Jack Eichel, a possibility that either of you could see. Let's start with the Leafs writer, Peter.
Yeah, I mean, Mitch Marner had a poor playoffs. I think everyone saw that. The fact that, we're at the point of possibly trading him, I understand, a poor performance can lead to some outlandish claims. I mean, Kyle Dubas and Brendan Hannigan mentioned that, they're in it for the long haul with this core. They want to win it. They have faith in both him and Matthews, despite the fact that they went cold during their series with the Habs. So, I mean, I think you got to give it a bit more time to try and figure out if Mitch Marner can, you saw the pain on his face after that delayed game in Game 6, the way that he looked dejected in Game 7 in his post-game interview and end of season interview. This guy he's hurting a lot. And I think he knows that. He knows that he needs to be better. And I think possibly next year, if he could get over sort of that, mental aspect and try and piece things together, we're going to see a rejuvenated Mitch Marner. We're going to see the player that we saw in the first 2 seasons where he was a dominant playmaker. His shot was, on point at certain points. It's just really tough to see right now. All the players are really, feeling it. And Mitch Marner was the one who kind of seems like the scapegoat at this point. So I think maybe hold off on a trade for now and just let things play out.
I'm curious what you think there, Blain. Obviously, covering the team that just eliminated the Toronto Maple Leafs, and could be a good reason as to why Mitch Marner might need to be traded. What do you think of these speculations going on right now?
I think they're outlandish. There is no reason for Toronto to trade Marner. If it actually does happen, Toronto deserves what they get because, in my opinion, and I'm a big Marner fan, believe it or not, he is, in my opinion, the best player on that team. You trade him, you lose your biggest weapon. So I think it's a poor idea on Toronto's part. And on Buffalo's part, why would they trade their top center for a winger? It makes no sense on either side. Not to mention in Toronto, they already have Matthews. They already have Tavares. Why do they need Eichel? So this whole thing makes absolutely zero sense to me.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with you there. When I've seen these, I've almost, dismissed them, but you can never do that nowadays because rumors will just keep picking up, and scarier things have happened. But especially with Eichel's contract, that's another thing that would make a trade like this very difficult. Although he is paid slightly less than Mitch Marner, but I mean, it's like you're not saving that much in cap, maybe about just over $1 million. So I mean, I don't know. It's all very it's an interesting topic. Jordan, did you have any parting thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I do think that's quite ridiculous. I don't think 2 teams that are going to be in the same division now for the remainder of these players' contracts are going to want to be making a trade of this magnitude. And I honestly don't even know how, because like if the Leafs even tried to do this, say Buffalo somehow agrees to this, are you going to have to throw in Nick Robertson, Timothy Liljegren? What players would have to be involved? What picks would have to be involved? Does it make sense? Probably not.
Totally agree. One last
But
thing.
if Buffalo wants to give up Eichel, I'm sure Montreal would love to take that phone call. Putting that out there.
Yeah, I don't know if you have quite the return that we're looking for. Maybe you do. I don't know.
I got blackmail information on Kevin Adams. That's what's going on.
You and every other GM in the league. Blain.
Yeah.
All right. One last thing of Sabres news here. Just a quick little nice piece of positive news. Drake Caggiula, who was on the Sabres for all of 10 games, maybe less. He's participating in a 25-kilometer rollerblade marathon, partnering with Matt's Muscle Crew to raise money for muscular dystrophy. So it's good to see a Sabre being talked about in positive news, and that's an awesome cause, definitely. I actually wrote a piece talking about how they are not going to re-sign him because he is on an expiring contract, but that's a guy you want to have in your community, so that's awesome. Shout out to him for doing that. And let's reset the show here. You're watching Sabres Scoop, presented by the Hockey Writers. So make sure to subscribe to and like the show on YouTube, follow and share on Facebook, and catch all of the great hockey content on thehockeywriters.com and on our Twitter feed at Sabres Scoop THW. All right, we are heading into what you guys are here for. And we're going to start out with the Montreal Canadiens. All right, so Blain, this is going to you. I will just run through some things here. And the first thing we're going to talk about is Carrie Price, because he's a guy who's on this monster contract that has been heavily scrutinized, and he has showed out in a huge way in these playoffs so far. So the Habs prevailed over the Leafs in a 7-game series. They won 3 straight elimination games to take the series. I'm sorry to dig up some bad blood, Peter and Jordan here. But Carrie Price in games 5, 6, and 7, 3-0 record, 183 goals against, 945 save percentage, only allowed 6 goals against in those games. Is Carrie Price the biggest reason the Habs came out on top in this series?
You can argue that he's the biggest reason. Yeah, I think that'd be fair to argue. I mean, he's not named the scariest goaltender by the players for nothing. He's a money goaltender. He had a terrible regular season by his standards. There is no arguing that point. But once the playoffs began, he showed up. And when the game is on the line and you need to win a game, he's not going to score any goals, but he is damn well sure going to make sure he shuts the door. I know it's kind of rubbing salt in the wound there for Peter a little bit, but
It's all good.
despite his large contract, I mean, he was only outscored by Marner and Matthew by 1 goal. So, and that's because of him. You can say that Toronto choked all you want. I don't think that's the case. Those players showed up and they did their absolute best, but they hit a wall, and that wall's name is Carrie Price.
There we go. As far as the whole team, could you be honest with me? Did you see them winning this series? Did you see this coming at all?
Before the playoffs began, I had Toronto winning that series, but I had it in 7 games. Then when Game 5 and 6, once Game 5 and 6 went through, and it was the Canadiens pulling out the overtime wins, before Game 7, I kind of knew that Toronto's spirit was kind of beat down a little bit, and the Canadiens were on that roll. So I'm not surprised they won, but it took me until Game 6 to be able to see a chance at winning.
Yeah, I think when it hit Game 7, a lot of people had that same feeling. Like especially watching Game 7, as soon as Montreal went up by a couple of goals, I kind of started to get that feeling as well. It's, felt very familiar, I'm sure, to a lot of Leafs fans, to games of the past. And so you just feel, and, I understand how it is. I'm naturalized Sharks fan over here. So I've been through that heartbreak and that sort of letdown for, my whole life. So I'm definitely there. And same thing with the Sabres, except they're never even there. So let's see here. Let's go on to the second round now. So that's where Montreal is right now. They play tomorrow, which by the time people are listening to this, that will be tonight for them. They're up 1-0 in that series. They won the first game by a score of 5-3, I believe, upsetting in Game 1 yet another opponent who was the favorite heading into the series. But a lot of people were saying, Montreal could take them to another long extended series. Aside from the Scheifele thing, which we'll get to later in the episode, what were your takeaways from the first game? Did Montreal look like the better team? Were they able to carry over that success they had in the Toronto series?
Yeah. So in Game 1, the Canadiens were the better team, and they played a carbon copy game from Game 7 against the Leafs. They took what worked against Toronto and applied it directly to Winnipeg. Now, Winnipeg actually out-hit the Canadiens in that game, but the Canadiens were willing to take those hits to make their plays. They were winning those one-on-one battles to progress play. And Winnipeg through the game was, you could tell that they were a bit rusty, that they were a little off their game. The Canadiens were getting in their heads, and they were chasing hits instead of chasing plays. The second goal, Stahl's goal, where Perry cut towards the middle of the net to pass the puck over to Stahl. Logan Stanley cut across to throw an elbow at Corey Perry instead of covering his man in front of the net, which was Stahl. So it was those little mistakes, because they were chasing the play and trying to be overly aggressive, that opened up these opportunities for the Canadiens. I don't know how well that's going to go through the rest of the series, if they're going to continue that in that method. But if they do, it's going to be a short series. And I picked it for another 7-game set. But if Winnipeg doesn't tighten up their game, it's going to be very short.
Yeah, with that being said, here's the last question here. Well, it's a two-parter. First, who do you think takes this series, and how far do you think the Habs go in the playoffs? Second part of that question is this roster that Marc Bergevin worked so diligently to put together and was heavily criticized again, are they a true competitor?
Okay, I'll start with the second question first.
Sure.
No, they're not a cup contender. This team is a good team. It's a playoff team. The way they're constructed, they're quote unquote built for the playoffs, meaning that they're able to play that physical style, but they're missing some pieces. They're a couple of steps away from being an actual cup contender, but with the right matchups, healthy, everything falling into place, Carrie Price playing the way he is, a deep run, not out of the question. As for the series, I picked the Canadiens to win this in a 7-game set, just because of Carrie Price and the matchup with Winnipeg not having the firepower that Toronto had. And now with all the injuries that are piling up for Winnipeg and suspensions, which we're going to cover, I'm sure, soon, that does not help Winnipeg's case.
Totally. Well said.
Totally. And we got to get into the Toronto Maple Leafs perspective on this, and it's going to be me and Peter. And let's just start off with this. According to JFresh Hockey's model, the Leafs dominated in the 3 games that they won in the Leafs Habs series, and the 4 games that they did ultimately end up losing were toss-ups. And I just want to get your initial thoughts of this, Peter. Why didn't the Leafs win games 5 and 6, in your opinion, when it was clearly on the table? They had won 3 straight games for their captain and John Tavares. What went wrong, and why couldn't they close it out?
It's a question that I'm still asking about 3 or 4 days later since that happened. How could they not close it out? And I think Blain said it best. Carey Price showed up. He was the main factor for the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, Austin Matthews had his chances. He had about 35, 37 shots on goal, and only one got by Carey Price, and that was off a rebound on an initial shot from Justin Hall. So it wasn't a typical, Austin Matthews curl and snipe top corner kind of play. It was a greasy goal, and we've seen him score those from time to time, but it wasn't Austin Matthews like we know. And yeah, even looking at the numbers from like natural stat trick, the Maple Leafs had the advantage in games 3 and 4, where they dominated the first 2 periods and kind of laxed a bit where Montreal started to push back, but they held their own with the improved defense that they made this offseason with the likes of TJ Brody and Zach Bogosian. In games 5 and 6, they were chasing it from the very beginning, where, they didn't look great in the first 2 periods, but came back in the third. And you could tell that they were pushing hard to tie the game, especially in game 5 when Muzzin scored those 2 goals to force overtime. And then when overtime came, they just completely faltered on 2 simple plays. It was giveaways. It was those simple, detail-oriented plays that just totally killed any sort of momentum for them. I mean, Galchenyuk in game 5, he had kind of 3 different outlets. Obviously, he made a no-look pass to Cole Caulfield, and that set the 2-on-0 with him and Nick Suzuki. He had 3 opportunities to either throw it to an empty corner or give it to another player. In game 6, it was Travis Dermott doing the spinorama pass, throws it out. Kotkaniemi gets it, and he just wires it past Jack Campbell. It was, as Keith said it, and even Shanahan at the end of his conference, it was the lack of killer instinct to sort of push them over and sort of gain that momentum. I mean, they were able to crawl it back, and they had that killer instinct to fight back. It's just they couldn't capitalize on the opportunity to close it out, and that's the real issue. They had the momentum, lost it, but even when they came back, they still looked dejected. I don't understand how this could have happened, up 3-1. And even in game 6 on their home ice with the fans in attendance, you had the advantage in overtime, and it was just one little play that cost them dearly.
Yeah, it's funny with Travis Dermott making that play, because he usually makes that spinorama pass once or twice every game. And the first time I saw him make that play in game 7, I was just like, come on, Travis.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be doing that, buddy. But, obviously the real talk of the town in Toronto media is the play of Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner, and specifically what went wrong for them in this series. I'm also curious, why do you think they never switched Marner with William Nylander with 5 goals, 8 points in this series? Why didn't you just shake it up a bit to at least try something new?
Yeah, a lot of fans were hoping to get that, vintage line of Hyman, Matthews, and Nylander like it was in the first 2 seasons, where Matthews and Nylander were, connecting very well with all their plays and setups. It was quite some time ago, but I saw that with Nylander during those 2 seasons, they played very well. They had the advantage in shot attempts, goals for, everything. And the fact that Mitch Marner was struggling, I don't care. I know you want to try and play your best players with the best. Mitch Marner's one of your top playmakers. Feeds the puck to Austin Matthews, but I don't care if he's making 10 million, 9, 8, 7. He wasn't working with Austin Matthews. You wanted to try and win the game you put him with the better player, and that was William Nylander by far. And, you know, we saw him getting into the corners, throwing hits, coming back, something that, you know, the Leafs fans are very reluctant to see or haven't seen much of with him. And he looked like what Mitch Marner should have been. And the fact that Keefe didn't give him that chance to play with Matthews, I mean, we saw him on the power play, but even then the power play was just a mess in itself anyways. The fact that he wasn't playing 5-on-5, I think could have been a major, you know, tipping point. And the fact that he had Nylander with Matthews and Marner, every play was dead on Marner's stick. He just did not look himself. So I think he probably should have demoted him and give Nylander that chance.
And I'm just curious here, Peter, you know, we're talking a lot about the Leafs that kind of played poorly in this series. Which ones actually stood out to you in a positive manner? A few names that pop out to my mind, you know, Jack Campbell was just a stud in this whole series. It's such a shame that his goaltending performance is done after this first round. William Nylander, we talked about Jason Spezza, 3 goals, 5 points in this series, just insane. And Morgan Riley really silenced all the doubters, in my opinion, with his first round playoff series. I'm curious, which one stood out for you?
Yeah, all those names really stood out. I mean, Campbell really solidified his spot as a starter next season. I mean, there's really no doubt about that. Everyone was hoping that, or thinking that maybe the regular season was kind of not a one-off, but they wanted to see more of him in the playoffs, and he rose to the occasion. Nylander, can't say anything about his performance, and it's funny because I wrote an article about 3 players that are looking to, you know, have a major impact in the series and in the playoffs, and Jason Spezza was one of those players that I keyed in on. You know, didn't have a lot of points last season, but you know, he made a key fight that sparked a comeback for the Maple Leafs in an elimination game against the Blue Jackets. Had 3 really crucial goals in this playoffs. So I'm hoping that, you know, he's a free agent right now. I'm hoping the Leafs sign him to another league minimum contract over 3-4 years, just so he can stay with the team, because he's a real impact player for them.
Speaking of free agents, like you mentioned there, a big one coming off the Leafs books this offseason is Zach Hyman. And, you know, with Zach, he honestly had to carry the puck a lot more on that Matthews Marner line. And, you know, it was obviously a bit of a struggle for him, you know, but we all know the player Zach Hyman is. He's gritty. He gets into the corners. He somehow wins every puck battle, no matter what. He's such a unique type of player. There honestly aren't too many guys like him in the National Hockey League. And I just want to know, what contract you realistically pitch to him to convince him to stay this offseason that isn't going to completely handicap your franchise?
Yeah, we talked about this in length a few weeks back on our show, The Maple Leafs Lounge, and throwing out contract numbers. And I mean, there's some out there, like initial reports were saying that it was like 5-6 million. I don't think that that's really ideal if you're the Maple Leafs. If anything, if that is what Hyman is asking for, then you're not going to sign him based on our cap situation. But I think ideally he's making just, you know, under 3 million right now. I think he's at 2.25, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have it off the top of my head. Okay, well, given the fact that, you know, he is an important player, seeing power play minutes on the second line, but he's a key penalty killer. Play him in any situation on any line. He's going to be a dynamic player. We saw what he did on the third line, carrying the line with Pierre Engvall and Ilya Mikheyev early on, just dominating and carrying that line. So I think maybe realistically, I would give him around the range of 4 to 4.5. Alex Kerfoot, he's making 3.5 million right now. I'm looking at him as possibly being unprotected for the upcoming expansion draft if his contract is off the books. I mean, I know Alex Galchenyuk is off the books as well. There's an extra 1.05 that comes up to 4.55 mil. There's something that you could add to Hyman. Frederick Anderson, his 5 million contract is up. I don't know what he's definitely not going to ask that kind of money if he's going to be in a backup spot, but if he wants to be a starter, he's going to be looking elsewhere. So there's another 5 million on top of that. All the low level league minimum contracts also coming off the book. So you have some space to work with, but I'm guessing maybe 4.5 is ideal given what Zach Hyman could do if you sign him to like about 5-6 years. I think that's going to be a really good contract in my book.
All right. Now I know I teased it earlier in the show, and we're gonna go back to Blaine for this one, for the topic here. Mark Scheifele. All right, it was just announced conveniently before the show, so we could talk about it, that he received a 4-game suspension from the Department of Player Safety, and I believe he had just a phone hearing. So people were already saying, okay, well, it's not going to be over 5 games, and so it ends up being 4. And this is, of course, for the hit on Jake Evans in game 1 of the second round versus the Montreal Canadiens. Drew a lot of criticism around the league, but I did see some people defending him. You know, you always have the two sides whenever there's a potential suspension coming up. So let's just pose the question here, and I'll go to Blaine first. What do we think about this suspension? You could talk about the play as well. Was it a good punishment? Was it not enough? So take it away.
Well, considering it's the Department of Player Safety from the NHL, I'm shocked they didn't just hand him a fine. I'm going to be like it.
The 5K fines.
Yeah, maximum fine of $5,000. Sorry, Department of Player Safety, in my opinion, is kind of missed the mark on most occasions. I'm honestly wondering why they don't have retired officials or officials who have been promoted into the position to fill that role instead of ex-enforcers. I find it a little odd, but that aside, the 4 games that was given to Scheifele, I feel, is as fair as you can expect from that department. I understand people are defending the hit, saying it was a clean hit. It hit him in the chest, not his head, and on and on and on. But it's not a clean hit. He charged him literally from standing next to Carrie Price, straight down the ice, did not play the puck whatsoever. He physically turned to make a hit. He conceded the goal. In the video from the Department of Player Safety, they even concede that point. So it's not a clean hit. So 4 games in the playoffs, that would be, I guess you can do a 2-for-1. That'd be an 8-game suspension for a player who, in all honesty, has been a very clean player up to this point. That is his first offense. But I mean, I wasn't a soldier until I joined the Army. So, like once you do something, you got to be punished for what you've done. It doesn't matter if you didn't do it before. So the 4 games, I guess, honestly, yeah, it's the fairest you can expect from this group. It sucks for Winnipeg because do that play. Scheifele was clearly flustered throughout the game. The Canadiens were in his head. He was you can see he was angry. He was going after Sherratt throughout the game. And he was frustrated. He was completely frustrated and flustered. And he made a poor decision. Now he's facing the consequence, and it hurts his team. That's the bigger aspect of this. It was a bit of a selfish play that hurts the Jets.
Yeah, well said. Let's get some other thoughts on this. Peter, I'm interested to hear from an outside perspective. You could talk about the play, talk about the suspension, if there's anything you got to say.
I mean, Blaine covered it mostly. Yeah, I totally agree. He skated all the way down, like head down from Montreal's end all the way over, and there was no way he was going to catch up to Jake Evans. I mean, he wrapped the puck around, and as soon as he looks up, Scheifele's already there. Dangerous spot, vulnerable spot. Head was down. He gets him. For me, it looked way up high. Got him in the chin. The head may not have been the point of contact, but it was pretty high, and it was very dangerous. I mean, looking at the replay, he looked like he did a somersault and then just laid out flat. So you can see the impact right there that, it was a very bad hit. Simple as that. And dumb decision on his part, because even if he skated all that way, he could have had eased up and maybe it just bumped him to send a message like, players do every now and then. There was nothing. I mean, that just really crossed the line. Really don't know what he was thinking at that point, but given the fact that, as Blaine said, the Department of Player Safety has been inconsistent all year. We saw with the Tom Wilson thing. The fact that it was 4 games really shocked me. I honestly thought that maybe he should have been gone the whole entire series because Nazem Kadri elbowed the guy in the head and he's gone for 8 games. So granted, he's had a history, but there's a whole entire another rule in that says there's a certain time where you're not considered a repeat offender. But given the fact that he got 4 games, says probably the best thing that the Department of Player Safety could do. They actually did something. I still think he should have been gone for longer. But then again, if things do get to game 6, Scheifele better, he's going to have a target on his back after what he did. And he's going to have to answer that because Jake Evans, I'm glad he's doing well, but that was very serious.
For sure. Jordan?
I agree with you guys and Peter and Blain that this was a 4-game suspension. I honestly was very shocked. And one thing I just want to quickly note on the Department of Player Safety, I've always wondered why is there no council? Why don't you assemble an actual team that actually can make this so it diversifies the opinions a little bit that are going into these big decision process. I don't know, not my choice, but I would maybe look into doing stuff like that in the future. And as regards to what happened on this play, I also want to give huge props to Nikolai Ehlers for his involvement in this. Obviously, saving Jake Evans there, pointing to the Canadiens medical staff to get him off the ice as soon as possible. You really like to see stuff like this because in plays like that, you don't necessarily see that too often, and that's why it's getting so highly noted. So I just want to give prop to Nikolai Ehlers. It's going to be very interesting to see if this series extends that far enough that's going to be like that Rangers Capitals game. I'm sure there's going to be tons of ratings for that one. We're going to probably see a lot of fights in that one. Mark Scheifele, as Joel Edmondson noted, is going to have a target on his back.
Yeah, and to further clarify that, the Dominic Champ went on this morning during his interview and clarified that they didn't mean after the whistle. They mean they're going to make his life hard between the plays in a legal manner. Mm-hmm. Just to be clear, so that if any, so that the league doesn't get the wrong idea, he went out of his way to make sure he clarified that.
Yeah, totally. And that's going to be a crazy playoff series to watch. But there are 3 other ones here throughout these NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. And we got to talk about it. Feel free to make your predictions for the series winners. Let's talk about the Boston Bruins and New York Islanders. That game, as of the time we are recording this, is heading into overtime, tied at 1. And conveniently enough, the series is tied at 1. Who do you think is taking this one? Let's start with you, Peter.
I hate to say this because, my dad's, he's a Bruins fan. I'm saying Boston in 6, mainly because of the fact that, Tuukka Rask has been really sharp, especially in the series against Washington. The perfection line, Pasternak, Marchand, and Bergeron, always on top of their game. But the play of Craig Smith, he scored a goal, and he was one of the key offseason acquisitions that I would have liked to see the Toronto Maple Leafs sign because he is a really good goal scorer. And he's starting to show up right now. He's going to get going, and he scored a pretty big goal for them. So given the fact that they have some scoring depth right now, I'm saying Boston in 6.
What do you have to say about that, Blain?
Well, as you can tell by my last name, I'm more partial to the Islanders. So I'm cheering for the Islanders in this one. It's not just because it's the Bruins. So
I don't know. I don't believe you. But,
it's part of it, but it's not the only part. I'd like to see the Islanders do another deep run. So I'm cheering for them. I actually picked them to win the series in 7. If they can win tonight's game, that would go a long way in helping that. But Boston dominated that third period. They outshot them 21-7 or 8. So it's going to be hard to see them not transfer that momentum, especially with the perfection line. Those guys are scary good. So, best of luck to the Islanders.
Do you have anything different to add to that, Brandon?
Yeah, I'm going to stand apart from the crowd here and go with the Islanders. And I'll say 7 games just to be safe, but because the Bruins ended the season super, super hot, and that's with their midseason struggles, and they've just flown through the offseason so far. The New York Islanders, though, and we've talked about this specifically on this show when we've had Isles riders on, there's something about these Barry Trotz coach teams, just, defensive shutdown. And by the way, Matt Barzal hasn't even really gotten going yet. So if, the best player on that team can really start to show up and, score some goals, which he hasn't done in the playoffs so far, that could take them to a whole other level. So I'm going to go with Islanders in 7.
And my take, I say this series is going to be going to Game 7 overtime. Yes, we're going to see a Game 7 overtime, and the Boston Bruins are going to prevail to head off to the conference finals. Next up, we have the Tampa Bay Lightning, currently leading their series against the Carolina Hurricanes 2-0. At the time of this recording, they're currently tied 2-2 in the third period. If Tampa wins this one, boy, that series, I don't know if Carolina can win 4 straight against the Tampa Bay Lightning. I'm curious. Let's start with you, Blain, this time. What is your series prediction?
Oh, I've got Tampa Bay winning that series. I had them in 6 before this series began, but in watching some of the play, it's probably going to be done sooner. Tampa's really, really, they're just on a roll, and I don't know. Maybe they get it in 5 instead. But I'm sticking with Tampa.
And what do you have to say about that, Peter? Anything as a note? Are you a Carolina supporter?
It's going to be really tough for them to come back. I had Tampa Bay. I believe I had it in 6 games. I initially had it in 5, but I believe I changed it to 6 just because it'd make it, a little bit fair. I think Carolina is going to make it a little bit interesting, but Tampa Bay is just way too dominant right now. I was just watching the game before I came on here, and they crawled their way back to 2 goals, and just really, it's hard not to doubt the reigning Stanley Cup champs. I mean, they had most of their key pieces. Kucherov came back. Everyone's on their game right now, so it's going to be really tough to beat them.
Do you have anything as different to add there, Brandon?
Unfortunately, I can't give you anything different. I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Lightning in 5 games. And, a couple of reasons for that. One, because they're already up 2-0. And if they win tonight, I could see Carolina, which is a very good hockey team, especially this season. I could see them winning a game and challenging in Game 5. Sorry. But I really think the Lightning would finish them off. They just now you can say about them, they have that cup pedigree. Now you can say that they have Kucherov back, who looks like he never missed a beat being gone all regular season. The Vezina guy and Vasilevsky again, I think they're too good.
It's pretty crazy too, because Carolina has looked good in this series. They look like they could win some of these games, but Andrei Vasilevsky, man, this guy is just elite. He's above every other goalie in the league, honestly, in terms of his consistent play on the ice, in my opinion. And for that, I have Tampa winning this series in 5 games. Now, we know Blain's take on this regarding the Habs-Jets series. Peter, what do you think? Is Montreal going to prevail after winning Game 1? Or is Winnipeg going to come climbing back?
Yeah, I gave my prediction before that game started. It was I had Winnipeg in 6, but given the suspension, Winnipeg's already in a tough hole right now with one of their top centermen out. Montreal looked like the team that was, just like against the last 3 games against Toronto, they came out hungry, and 4 straight games, they were the hungrier team. And this is, Blaine, we talked about it on this, on one of our shows before. The Habs love the underdog role. They thrive on it, and they're thriving it right now early on. So I had Winnipeg in 6. It wouldn't surprise me if Montreal takes it because, they have the advantage right now, and they're going to be even more motivated to probably win it for Scheifele. I mean, not for Scheifele, to win it for Jake Evans. Sorry.
No, for Scheifele.
Wow.
It's okay to jump on the bandwagon. There's lots of room in Montreal. Come on board.
Yeah, I already got enough family members, cousins, friends, man. It's yeah.
And what do you have?
Join Canada's team. Come on.
Canada's team. Oh, yeah. Totally.
Ooh,
They do gotta get to that one step, though.
We're the North champs, but
That's about it.
Brandon, do you have the Habs or Jets taking this series?
Yeah, I'm still gonna say that it makes it to 6 games, and with Scheifele coming back, I'm gonna say that gives the Jets a little bit of a boost, and I'll say it goes to Game 7. And I'm gonna say the Jets take it. I just think they're the more well-rounded team. Obviously, they're a little bit of favorites, and I think if Hellebuyck can really play, lights out. I think that gives them the edge, honestly. So I'm going to go with the Jets in 7.
Well, I'm sure Blaine's going to like hearing this, but honestly, even before game 1, I had Montreal taking this series in 6 games just because I do think Winnipeg does have a more talented team, even though Montreal, I would say, has a stronger D core. I just think with the way Carrie Price is playing, you're getting spectacular performances out of Nick Suzuki, Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Kotkaniemi, by the way, I saw that Hockey News tweet, is only 1 goal behind Sidney Crosby and Wayne Gretzky for most playoff goals scored before the age of 21. A complete playoff performer, that kid. Cole Caulfield, man, he was so noticeable once he came in that Leaf series. Hasn't missed a beat. He's going to be such a great player. I'm surprised he went that low. It was exactly the same conversation I had with myself about Alex DeBrincat. It was just such an obvious pick there. Montreal is going to be a pretty good team, man. And I mean, regarding this next series, Colorado and Vegas, I mean, the winner of, I don't know if Montreal can necessarily surpass them, but Colorado currently leading that series against Vegas 2-0. Like pretty dominant so far. Vegas did come climbing back in game 2, made it a decent game. Colorado prevailing in overtime. What do we think's happening here? Do we think Vegas could actually make this interesting, or is Colorado just too good this year? Let's start with you, Brandon, this time.
I've heard a lot of people say that the Colorado Avalanche right now are what they thought that the Maple Leafs were going to look like right now at this point in time. And I think there's no better way to sum it up. I mean, this team, they're fast, they're so talented, so deep. They're finally getting goaltending. Grubauer hasn't lost a game yet in the playoffs right now, and his, sub 2 goals against over 930 save percentage. Like, he's standing on his head. So they finally have that goaltender, which is the piece that they think they've been missing for the past few seasons, although they've been very good. They're coming off a President's Trophy. They made it past the first round. So the curse is looking like it's, getting thinner with each passing game. And they just look so good. And Vegas is a phenomenal team. I actually picked Vegas to win the cup. So, I was very high on them coming into this, but Colorado just looks incredible right now. So I really don't know how long the series is going to go. Let's say 6 games, but I think Colorado takes it.
What do you have to put in there for the discussion, Blaine? Do you think Colorado's winning it?
Yeah, I have Colorado as my pick for the cup before the playoffs began. And you look at their blue line, Cale Makar, Samuel Girard, Devin Tays. Though when you're looking for the prototypical new age NHL blue line, you look to Colorado's blue line. Those guys are excellent puck movers. They're able to play both sides of the ice. They can, the transition game is out of this world, which just helps Nate McKinnon, Halifax native. So they just have too many weapons. I do see Vegas coming back and making a bit of a series out of this, but I don't see them beating Colorado. Colorado just they're playing their best hockey at the right time.
And what do you have to add in there, Peter? Do you think Vegas could come storming back, or like Blaine and Brandon alluded to, this is just Colorado's year?
I think this is Colorado's year. I mean, last season in the bubble, it really stung for them, given the fact that, it was their chance to try and win it as well. And I think they're hungry this time around. But yeah, as Blaine mentioned, their defense is out of this world. And that, I think it even rivals that of what we see with Tampa Bay. Cale Makar is this is his world right now. We're just all living in it. Nathan McKinnon, same thing. That goal in game 1 where he just turned on the Jets, that was just like a cheat code in NHL. Like, absolutely crazy. Like, I jumped out of my seat and I'm like, did that just actually happen? And he's leading, the league in points right now with 13, goals with 8, and even getting some great secondary scoring with Brandon Saad. So you're getting contributions throughout the lineup right now. And the fact that, I had him winning in 7. I thought this was going to be a really close series. I picked the Avs to sweep the Blues. I'm not going to say they're going to sweep Vegas, but if they do, oh my God, this team is going to be something to beat. They're going to be a force to reckon with. And like Blaine, I have them to winning the cup right now. They're my favorite. And yeah, I'd be shocked if it does end in a sweep. Vegas would be lucky if they get to 5 or 6 games, because I don't think it's going to go to 7.
I totally agree with you there, Peter. Honestly, I do think Vegas will climb back to win 2 games in this series, but Colorado will ultimately prevail, in my opinion, to take this series in 6 games. I saw that funny Don Luszczyszyn tweet about how the Avalanche are built on they're a good prime example of being built on too much skill, and that's kind of where they need to. That's how teams probably should be going towards. The Leafs probably could have tried to acquire better players, and most notably Taylor Hall instead of Nick Foligno there, just as an example. But Colorado, got the fact that they got Devon Toews for 2 second-round picks, man, it's just still puzzling in my mind. I can't believe that trade still went through. But Colorado, man, this looks like to be their year this year. Nathan McKinnon just so dominant, such a great supporting cast. And hey, maybe that Nazem Kadri guy will actually not get suspended. We'll actually play some games down the stretch for them. Remember, he's not even in the lineup. And I think with that, guys, we are ready here to wrap up the show. So we thank you for joining us, and this has been Sabres Scoop, presented by the Hockey Raiders. Make sure to subscribe to the show on YouTube, follow and share the show on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter at Sabres Scoop THW. And a big thank you yet again to Peter and Blain for joining the show today. It was great to talk about some teams that are actually playing meaningful games right now. It's always fun to get another team's perspective.
One team.
One team.
And one team. Once again, make sure you head over to morningskate.io to sign up for our daily Morning Skate newsletter so you don't miss out on the latest and weirdest hockey news every day. And don't miss out on all the great hockey content on thehockeyraiders.com. For Brandon, Peter, and Blain, this is Jordan, and this has been Sabres Scoop. Until next time.